Ed is disarming.
Ed is giving.
Always takes the time to see how you're doing.
Ed is intelligent.
Always takes the time to ask how your family is.
He's opportunistic.
Selfless. I think selfless would be a good term to use for Ed.
And he's really funny.
I wanted to be Perry Mason. I became extremely independent very young. My mother still tells me the story, she's still around at 88, that when I started school at Palmerston Public School, we had to cross Bloor Street because we lived south of Bloor and Palmerston Public School was north, and I insisted on doing it myself. And I was 5, and so she sort of followed me, but I would get very upset if I saw her, so she stayed out of sight, and I guess I've always been pretty independent and trying to find my own way, so it started pretty early. Once I finished law school, it was like somebody turned a switch, and I really became a fairly driven person, and I have to thank my father for that.
Think of the scenario that he's a successful commercial lawyer in a mid-size, strong real estate Toronto firm, and he decides to leave practice to go into industry.
I found I was really just enjoying the business part. There was too much of dealing for clients that I didn't really want to do work for. In many ways, I thought, you know, I can do it as good, probably better than they can.
He chose to jump out of that to work for a client in a real estate fund and take a risk.
So I became president of Council Realty Corporation right at the beginning of 1987. Little did I know that the world was going to give me about 2 good years and then the roof was going to cave in.
Nobody was saved in the 90s. Everybody from Bramalea to O&Y, Cadillac were all at risk or actually collapsed.
I was determined that whatever it was I was able to build was not going to get into financial trouble. RioCan was structured and set up and to this day is run in reaction to the failures and the things that went wrong in the early 90s.
We didn't know about REITs in 91, 92, 93 in Canada. It was Ed who really started that process.
Ed became a door-to-door salesperson trying to convince people what a REIT was, and people didn't know. All the dirty work was done by the time I came into the company. So the first year was spent on making sure that we had a solid core of investors.
There were 3 REITs that started all at the same time, being in '94. There was ourselves, there was Crete, and there was a company called Real Fund. I remember approaching, and I knew the CEO of Real Fund, he went to law school with me, and I went to him once and I said, you know, it really makes sense to put the 2 REITs together. We should do that. And I went through a whole list of items that I thought it was a good thing to do. And you know, he said, well, it's not a bad idea, but who would run it? I said, well, I sort of thought me, and he sort of thought otherwise. Anyway, he didn't want to go forward with it, and I ended up doing the only one we've ever done, a hostile takeover, and it was very hostile.
For all that's said in terms of him being a pussycat, when the chips were down and we had to do what it take to do the best deal for our unit holders, Ed put the gloves on and he was there. That was the game changer.
And that really, not only did it knock away a main competitor, it really took us to a size. It made us a $1 billion company in one fell swoop. The Power Center format was one whose time came and was driven largely by Walmart's entry into Canada. You could see very quickly that they were going to become a dominant retailer in Canada by 95, 96. The economics of a power center made so much sense, it couldn't be held back. It was going to happen. And last but not least, being risk averse the way we are, you want to build, and we have a few of these, 1 million square foot power center. You can build it as you lease it. Sure, you have to commit to the land, you have to put the servicing in, but the actual buildings, you just build them as you lease them. And in fact, one of the first good-sized power centers we did, which is out in Calgary, it's called Signal Hill, probably one of our best shopping centers in Western Canada, if not Canada altogether. We built that in 5 phases, and it's only 700,000 square feet. The fact is, you want to build a 20-story office building, you've leased the top 10 floors, you still got to build the bottom 10 floors. even though you don't have a tenant. You want to build a mall, you got to build the whole mall. New format, power center, whatever you want to call it, you can build a piece at a time, and that just makes it all work from a financial and risk minimization perspective. The growth of RioCan is certainly my proudest business achievement. When we went public in '94, it had an enterprise value of less than $100 million. And that was probably a little, we were probably pushing the envelope calling it $100 million. And when it went over $10 billion at the end of last year, and I sat back and I said, holy mackerel.
Ed understands what REITs are all about. REITs are an income-producing vehicle. He understands that the durability of the income is paramount to his investor confidence. And he's always maintained that. He's always been able to, through the recessions, keep that going. So to Ed's credit, its integrity, its experience and track record, and the ability to deliver, which I think has given him credibility in the marketplace.
The fact that we send out $340 million a year, largely to people. About half of our investors are individuals, many of them retired. And I'm proud that I've been able to do that. And while building, Canada's largest retail landlord while I was doing it. And still having people think I'm not a bad guy all the way through. That wasn't bad.
17 years of industry leadership, 10 years of RealPAC Association, 2 years as my board chair. It's been great. Congratulations.
Eddie, 15 years together, looking forward to the next 15. Congratulations, well deserved.